you say.
My Aunt Joyce has a daughter who's, I think, in her mid-50s, and she's been diagnosed with MS. And I don't know why all these health things came up at this reunion. It never has before, but anyway. She was interesting because she was so angry about her predicament. And I don't know, I can understand why you'd be angry about that predicament, but...
Well, we'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because here's her vortex over here. So when she finds herself not feeling good, when she finds herself losing some of her abilities, then her desire is getting stronger and stronger. And so as she stands there in that place of increasing disconnection, she's asking more and more and more. And as she's asking more and more, this vortex is calling her in a stronger and stronger way. And when you're in despair, when you're feeling powerless, and the vortex is calling you, even though you can't consciously hear it, in other words, the emotional scale is despair or disempowerment and fear down there at the furthest end. And then anger or revenge, anger, is a step closer to the vortex. And then frustration and overwhelmment is a step closer to the vortex. So her vortex is calling her. We would far rather see her in anger than in fear or despair. It's really a step in the right direction. But what happens with most people, because they've been trained that anger is inappropriate, because people don't like angry people to be around them. They'd rather you're depressed. You're less trouble when you're depressed.
Right.
When you are angry, you're on the way. And if we were counseling her, we'd say, good for you. You're taking some of your power back. When you feel angry, at least you're focusing, and at least you're making your claim to what you do want. And if she could just get into the vicinity of hope, the vortex would take her in and she would recover. But the medical community wants to say, oh, there are some things to which there is no recovery. And we say, there is nothing to which there is no recovery. But if you convince people of that, then they'll be over there in despair, and then for sure there's no recovery, because recovery is in the vortex. You got to give them hope, or they don't have a prayer of recovery, you see.
Yeah.
So when you give someone the death sentence or diagnosis of something, when you say this is a degenerative disease and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, it puts her in despair. She moves into anger, and then people say, oh, you shouldn't be angry. It's not godly to be angry. It's not good for you to be angry. So she moves back to despair. Despair, anger, despair, anger, despair, anger, despair, anger, despair, anger. We'd like her to go despair, anger, a little less anger, frustration, overwhelmment, hopefulness, belief. And then she's back on her feet.
Right.
Really, we're not kidding you. Everything that anyone lives is nothing more than an indication of vibration. But you see, here's the thing we've been telling doctors and scientists for a while. If you will, instead of looking for cures, which is like a Band-Aid, if you would stop looking for cures and start looking for vibrational causes, when someone has a vibrational indicator, like a diagnosis, whether you call it Alzheimer's or MS or whatever you call it, how the person feels while they've got that, now that it's a manifestation, is how they were feeling before they got that. That's just an exclamation point on how they've been feeling.
Right.
Every single time. No exceptions, you see. So you are the creator of your own reality. Your emotions indicate whether you are in sync with who you really are or not. And if you've got negative emotion and you don't recognize that it is guidance calling you toward better feeling thoughts, so you don't look for better feeling thoughts, don't worry, it will get bigger. And if you still don't do something to clean it up, don't worry, it will get bigger. It will get bigger, because law of attraction is responding to the vibration of you. And so here it is. If the vibration of you is two opposing points, and each of them are getting bigger, what's the result for you? More stress on your vibrational experience and more stress on your physical apparatus. All illness, every illness, no exception, is that. Every single time, you see.
Yeah.
We were talking about expectation earlier. Once something is manifested and you're observing it, it's hard not to notice it.
Yeah.
And most people offer almost all of their vibration in response to what they are observing. So when you have a physical condition, it gets your attention because you take your body almost everywhere you go. So as you're observing how you feel in your body, how you feel, then your expectation just sort of gets into that rut, that expectation. But the thing that is so interesting is every time that happens, you expand more. You just can't hurt a little without expanding. Do you know that this vortex of creation, this vibrational escrow, of someone like your cousin is healthier than almost anyone you know. Because in her despair and in her feeling of victimhood, in her deep resentment, she keeps launching these rockets of what she really wants, but then holding herself in opposition to them. So if we were visiting with her, we would not listen to her stories of victim. We would say, you got to cut that out. And she would not like it. And she would say, well, this is just what's happening with me. And we would say, but it doesn't have to happen that way. You could tell a different story. And she would say, well, telling a different story is sort of a metaphysical, airy-fairy, Pollyanna, ridiculous thing to do. Because here I am living this experience. And I don't see what power saying it different than it is would bring. And we would say, saying it different than it is would focus you in the direction of what you want. And if you could consistently focus yourself in the direction of what you want instead of in the direction of what you don't want, you would begin to offer a consistent, different vibration.
Right.
And when you offer a different vibration, your vibrational indicators, which is your physical condition or whatever you're living, would change. It is certain. It is certain. Every situation can be resolved. Every problem can find a solution. But here's the big thing that you'd have to get across. The vibration of a problem and the vibration of a solution are very different vibrations. The vibration of a question and the vibration of an answer are very different vibrations. So if you're beating the drum of the problem, you cannot find the solution. You have to beat the drum of the solution. And many people would say, well, why would I do that when this is what I'm living? And we say, well, for one thing, you'd feel better. For another thing, you'd feel better. For another thing, you'd feel better. For another thing, you'd feel better. In other words, a woman was hurting from arthritis, and she said, how can I think positive thoughts when I'm in pain? And we said, you can have pain and have hope, or you can have pain and have despair or fear. And the vibrational difference between hope and despair is the difference between recovery or not, you see. But a lot of people that have practiced themselves into a vibration can't hear that. They are sort of in a rut.
Yeah.
Esther said to Jerry one day, I think instead of this flimsy emotion when I'm out of the vortex, that a tooth should just fall out. And I don't think more than 2 or 3 would fall out, and I'd clean up my thoughts if the stakes were higher. And so it would seem that when people have disintegrating bodies, that they would start wanting to clean up their vibration more. And if they understood that the condition of their body is related to this gap between who they're being and who they really are, we think more people would. Good conversation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good time for a segment of reflection.